They didn't understand. The Galactic Union had seen many things across the millennia. Empires rising and falling, civilizations wiped out by war, disease, or their own hubris. But this was something new. The broadcast had been simple. A transmission from Earth, uncoded, sent openly across the galactic spectrum. A short video. At first, the Union's intelligence officers assumed it was a declaration of surrender. After all, the Zilzier Dominion had just issued their ultimatum to the humans. Surrender Earth and submit or be annihilated. It was standard protocol. The Dominion had crushed hundreds of worlds this way. Most species, when faced with overwhelming firepower, responded predictably, pleading, negotiating, groveling. But Earth? The humans sent a video. Galactic confusion. The High Council of the Union gathered in the war chamber, the largest assembly of leaders in the known universe. Representatives of 1,000 species sat in tense silence as the video played on the grand holoscreen. It was surreal. A human stood at a podium wearing a strange black suit and bow tie. The crowd in the video, a gathering of other humans, watched in eager anticipation. The man on the podium took a deep breath and said, "So, the Zilziers say they're coming to conquer us." He paused. "I guess that means we'll have to introduce them to Australia." The audience of humans exploded into laughter. The council chamber did not. The galactic leaders stared at the screen, unblinking. The Zilzier Dominion's warlords, who had attended this meeting to witness humanity's expected capitulation, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. What was this? The video continued, more of the humans' words followed by more human laughter. Was a pattern. Statement. Pause. Laughter. But why? What was funny? The Zilzier warlord's growing rage. Warlord Kvax of the Zilzier Dominion, an apex predator with razor-lined mandibles and 6 crimson eyes, rose from his seat, his patience fraying. His species did not tolerate mockery. He slammed a clawed fist against the table, cracking the stone. Enough. His voice echoed through the chamber, silencing the murmurs. The humans' broadcast looped again, filling the silence with more of their absurd laughter. Kvax's mandibles clicked in irritation. This is nonsense. Where is their surrender? Where is their fear? The Zilzier Empire was built on terror. Entire worlds had collapsed before their might. Their fleets darkened the skies of every species they conquered. The mere mention of their name was enough to send civilizations into a frenzy of panic. But these humans? They responded with this. A thin, pale-skinned alien from the Alvax Syndicate leaned forward, his large, bulbous eyes blinking in rapid succession. Perhaps it is a message encoded in subharmonics? He suggested. A reptilian Sethari diplomat flicked his forked tongue in suspicion. Or a psychological warfare tactic? Warlord Kvax let out a guttural growl. No. They are mocking us. Silence. Mockery? Such a concept was nearly unthinkable in interstellar warfare. Defeated civilizations pleaded. The defiant fought until they were crushed. But none had ever laughed. A ripple across the galaxy. The transmission didn't stop with the Galactic Union. It spread. It spread to mercenary fleets, criminal syndicates, backwater colonies, and rogue AI clusters. It reached the hidden enclaves of warlords and the secretive councils of the Eldrin Ascendancy. And everywhere it sparked the same reaction. Confusion. Discomfort. Fear. Because there was something terrifying about an enemy that laughed in the face of annihilation. The warlord's decision. Kvax had seen enough. His clawed fingers tapped a command into his console. Begin the invasion. Burn Earth to cinders. If humanity would not kneel, they would be erased. But humanity wasn't done laughing. Because the joke had just begun. Kvax had ordered the invasion. But something was wrong. The Zilzier fleet, one of the most feared armadas in the galaxy, had set course for Earth within moments of Kvax's command. Thousands of warships, bristling with planet-cracking weapons, slipped into warp, surging through the void toward humanity's homeworld. They expected submission. They expected terror. But what they got was more laughter. Earth responds. The humans didn't send diplomats. They didn't send an official declaration of war. Instead, they broadcast another video. The High Council of the Galactic Union, still struggling to decode the first, watched in stunned silence as this new transmission unfolded. It was another human. A different one this time, but wearing the same black suit and bow tie as the first. The human stood on a large circular stage, a microphone in hand. He grinned at an unseen audience before saying, "So, the Zilzier are coming to invade us." Pause. We be worried, but we've seen what happens when an apex predator meets a Florida man. The human crowd erupted in hysterics. The Galactic Council sat frozen. Warlord Kvax, his rage barely contained, let out a guttural snarl. What does it mean? His officers shifted uncomfortably. The name, Florida Man, had no equivalent in the galactic archives. It held no strategic meaning, no known military significance. And yet, the humans seemed to find it hilarious. Terror begins to spread. Across the galaxy, civilizations who had once viewed humanity as a minor species now watched with unease. Humans should have been afraid. Their fleets were smaller, their weapons were primitive, and their territory was minuscule compared to the vast dominion. And yet, they laughed. They laughed in the face of annihilation. To a species like the Zilziei, who ruled through sheer terror, this was more than defiance. It was madness. The first assault begins. The invasion fleet arrived in Sol space in perfect formation, weapons primed. Their numbers were overwhelming. Their technology unmatched. But as the warships closed in on Earth, a final human transmission was broadcast across all known frequencies. This time there was no human in a suit. Just a simple phrase, displayed in bold white text on a black background. You're not ready for the kind of stupid you've just unleashed. Then, silence. The Zilziei command center processed the message. It wasn't a warning. It was a statement. The unexpected counterattack. Warlord Kvax watched from the bridge of his flagship as his forces descended into Earth's atmosphere. At first, everything went as expected. The planet's defense grid opened fire, but their weapons were outdated. Human fighter jets scrambled to intercept, but they were vastly outmatched. Victory was certain. No. The unexpected happened. A transmission, somehow piggybacking on the Zilziei fleet's own encrypted channels, hijacked their entire comms network. And then, music began playing. It was loud, chaotic. Instruments clashed together in a storm of noise and aggression. The humans called it heavy metal. It blasted across every Zilziei ship. The savage wailing of electric guitars, the guttural growls of human voices screaming defiance into the void, it was overwhelming. And then, over the music, came another human voice. Welcome to Earth, you overgrown cockroaches. The screen cut to live footage of the first Zilziei warship touching down. Its landing struts extended. Its troops prepared for planetary conquest. And then, a single human wearing nothing but shorts and flip-flops, charged the ship with a flamethrower. The first casualties of war. Warlord Kvax watched in horror as the human, the one they would later call the Florida Man, sprinted toward the warship, screaming something incomprehensible. Zilziei soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the air. The human dodged them all. Not with precision. Not with training. But by sheer, mindless, unpredictable movements. He tripped. He rolled. He zigzagged erratically, shrieking like a feral beast. And then, he leaped onto the warship's hull and fired the flamethrower straight into the ventilation ducts. The ship's primary oxygen filtration system ignited instantly. An explosion tore through the hull. The massive warship, a vessel capable of leveling continents, detonated from within. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. The first casualty of the war was a Zilziei battleship, destroyed by a shirtless man with a homemade flamethrower. Panic in the ranks. Across the invasion force, reports flooded in. A human grandmother armed with a rolling pin had single-handedly disabled an entire Zilziei recon squad. A horde of shirtless bikers wielding chainsaws had ambushed an armored division in the Nevada desert. A farmer with a shotgun and a case of beer had downed an enemy dropship by accident while trying to shoot a drone. It wasn't just resistance. It was chaos. The tides began to turn. Warlord Kvax's claws dug into the metal railing of his command deck. His invasion was unraveling before his very eyes. The Zilziei were prepared for war. They were prepared for resistance. But they weren't prepared for this. They weren't prepared for humans who charged war machines with homemade weapons. They weren't prepared for civilians who fought back without fear. They weren't prepared for the sheer, unpredictable insanity of Earth's population. And as the flames of battle spread, one horrifying truth settled into the minds of every alien watching from afar. Humanity wasn't losing. They were having fun. The invasion collapses. Warlord Kvax paced the bridge of his command ship, his claws clicking against the metal floor as he tried, desperately, to make sense of what was happening. His war doctrine was simple: overwhelm, intimidate, annihilate. It had worked against every species the Zilziei had conquered. But now he watched in horror as his invasion fleet fell apart, not due to superior tactics or advanced technology, but because the humans refused to acknowledge it as a war at all. Kvax had expected resistance. He had not expected drunken humans climbing onto Zilzier tanks and attempting to ride them like rodeo bulls. A live television broadcast from the battlefield featuring a human reporter interviewing Zilzier soldiers, who had no idea what was happening. An entire unit of elite Zilzier warriors surrendering to a single human child because they thought the stuffed bear she was holding was some kind of sacred battle totem. The terror campaign backfires. In desperation, Kvax ordered a renewed push. Zilzier forces descended into major cities, deploying shock troops in towering mechanized battle suits, their plasma cannons primed. The humans? They didn't run. Instead, they ran toward the invaders. In New York, a group of street performers dressed as superheroes ambushed a Zilzier scouting party. The aliens, confused and panicked, radioed command for guidance. They are leaping at us. Acrobatically. Their leader claims he is Spider-Man? Kill him. Kill them all. Kvax roared. We can't. The humans keep clapping and demanding an encore. Meanwhile, in rural Texas, a Zilzier battalion stormed a homestead, only to be met by an elderly human armed with a lever-action rifle and an unshakable sense of personal property rights. The Zilzier commander barely had time to speak before the human spat his cigarette to the ground and growled. This here's private property, son. Kvax later received the casualty report. The entire battalion had been wiped out by one man and his hunting dog. The turning point. By the third day of the invasion, Kvax realized his army wasn't just losing. They were breaking. Zilzier soldiers, terrified beyond reason, were abandoning their posts. It wasn't because the humans were stronger or more advanced. It was because the humans weren't fighting correctly. The Zilzier had trained for war. They had not trained for a swarm of LARPers charging their armored divisions with foam swords and screaming about honor-bound duels. An entire city refusing to stop throwing raves under the glow of burning Zilzier warships. A man in a Bigfoot costume terrorizing scouting patrols deep in the forests of Washington, leading them into bear dens. What kind of species responded to planetary invasion by making a joke out of it? The final broadcast. As the situation deteriorated, humanity sent one final message across all frequencies. This time, no humans appeared on the screen. No suits. No reporters. Just a simple, single phrase displayed in bright neon letters. We ain't locked in here with you. You're locked in here with us. And then, another clip played. It showed a Florida man wrestling an alligator into a gas station parking lot while onlookers cheered. Panic ensues. Kvax's officers, upon seeing the footage, openly wept. The Zilzier had conquered 57 planets across the stars. They had broken empires, raised worlds, and crushed entire civilizations beneath their feet. But this was something far worse. A species that laughed at war. A species that took nothing seriously, not even their own annihilation. And worst of all, a species that had domesticated apex predators for fun. Retreat becomes mutiny. Across the Zilzier fleet, officers refused to send reinforcements. Entire divisions laid down their weapons. Soldiers who had once been the terror of the galaxy now huddled in fear, whispering the name that had spread like wildfire across their ranks. The Florida man. They spoke of him like a god of chaos. A living force of destruction. Kvax tried one last time to rally his fleet. Hold the line. They are mortals. They can be killed. Then came the final, fatal blow. The human military finally decided to get involved. The real war begins. Up until now, the counterattack had been purely civilian. Earth's military had sat back, watching with amusement as their people handled the invaders. But now, with alien forces in full retreat, they launched a single, coordinated strike. Human warships punching through the blockade with pinpoint precision. Special forces deploying to secure captured alien technology. Ground troops rolling in like a tidal wave, forcing the last remnants of the invasion to flee for their lives. The message was clear. Humanity had been playing with its food. Now they were done playing. The end of the invasion. As Warlord Kvax watched his Grand Armada fall to pieces, he knew the truth. They had lost. Not just the battle. Not just the war. But any hope of ever understanding these creatures called humans. He gave the only order left to give. Retreat. Get us away from this cursed planet. The Zilzier fleet turned and fled, abandoning Earth to its madness. And as they did, humanity sent one last message. One final, gut-wrenching transmission to their would-be conquerors. A single image. A mugshot of Florida man with a caption that read, "Next time bring more ships." The escape from Earth. KVAX's flagship lurched as it entered hyperspace, the emergency evacuation protocol overriding all standard procedures. His officers, normally a hardened, disciplined force, now huddled together, trembling as if the very fabric of their reality had been shattered. Because it had. They had come to conquer. Instead they had fled. KVAX gripped the edges of his command chair, his mandibles clicking anxiously. The retreating fleet was in shambles. Half of the surviving warships had jumped to random coordinates, too terrified to remain in formation. Others had simply refused to leave orbit until KVAX personally screamed at them to flee. And all of it, because the humans never took them seriously. But the warlord wasn't a fool. He knew what came next. The humans had let them go. Allowed them to escape. But not because they were merciful. No, KVAX had the horrifying realization that humanity wanted them to spread the story. To warn the rest of the galaxy. And worst of all, to let everyone know that Earth was open for visitors. The broadcast that broke the universe. It didn't take long. Within 3 solar cycles, the footage of the SCI-FI's failed invasion had spread far beyond Earth's system. The Galactic Council, an ancient, bureaucratic entity that governed trade, diplomacy, and the tenuous balance of interstellar war, called for an emergency meeting. The entire chamber sat in stunned silence as the recordings played. The footage was undeniable. A SCI-FI squad being tricked into handing over their weapons in exchange for magic beans. A SCI-FI warlord being taken down by a single well-aimed fast food milkshake. Entire battalions surrendering to humans dressed in costumes because they believed they were gods. And, of course, the most damning clip of all, the mugshot of the fabled Florida man. The delegates from over 1,000 species sat in stunned silence. Then the whispers began. They laughed at war. They let an apex predator live in their homes. They chose chaos over order. A representative from the Tath Dominion, one of the galaxy's most feared warrior species, stood up and ripped his war medals off his chest. What is the point of conquest, he roared, if war itself is nothing but a joke to them? It was an existential crisis on a galactic scale. The declaration of galactic emergency. Panic spread. A new law was proposed, a universal ban on traveling to Earth. The humans weren't just dangerous, they were corruptive. Already, reports were flooding in of young SCI-FI warriors defecting, sneaking off to Earth's system to see the madness for themselves. Other species were starting to imitate human behavior, testing if they too could weaponize humor. It was spreading. And the Council had no idea how to stop it. Finally, after a heated debate, the Galactic Council did something they had never done before. They voted unanimously. By official decree, Earth was declared a Level 5 anomalous world. The highest possible classification. The message to humanity. The Council sent one last transmission to Earth. A simple statement. We surrender. Humanity responded immediately. Not with warships. Not with demands. Not with retaliation. But with a laughing emoji. And a video. A recording of Florida man riding an alligator down a flooded highway. The message was clear. You can never understand us. Don't even try. The final truth. In the aftermath, the galaxy was forever changed. The SCI-FI abandoned war entirely, unable to recover from the trauma of Earth. Their empire collapsed overnight. The Tath Dominion's warriors started training in improvisational comedy, believing humor to be the ultimate weapon. New religions formed around Florida man, with entire alien sects making pilgrimages to witness Earth's most chaotic locations. And throughout it all, humanity? They kept doing exactly what they had always done. They worked. They lived. They fought amongst themselves. And sometimes just for fun, they'd look up at the stars and laugh. Because the galaxy had never seen anything like them. And it never would again. End of story. Did you enjoy it? Make sure to subscribe, because if you think this was crazy, just wait until you hear about the time we invited the aliens to a human wedding.